pay close attention. I am referring to individuals who perceive the Super Bowl excitement in the same manner as you might perceive competitive butter sculpting. Simply maintain an emotional state of neutrality. And this is what individuals overlook. The Super Bowl does not resonate with certain individuals in the same manner. Therefore, we should commence. The initial point to grasp is that sports enthusiasm is not a natural human characteristic. The brain doesn't come out of the womb programmed to lose its mind over a touchdown. When individuals become fixated on the Super Bowl, they experience a complex web of tribal identity, which leads them to believe that they have a personal relationship with the participants, despite the fact that they do not. In fact, there is a term for this phenomenon: basking in the reflected grandeur. In essence, your brain has the ability to provide you with a dopamine surge when your team achieves victory, despite the fact that you did nothing more than sit on your sofa in the appropriate zip code. For people who don't care about the Super Bowl, witnessing that happen to other people is like, okay, cool. I suppose that particular trigger just doesn't land the same way. There's actually some interesting research here from the Journal of Consumer Psychology that discovered people have wildly different optimal stimulation levels. Some brains crave high-intensity, emotionally charged experiences, while others find that same intensity genuinely aversive. Neither is superior, they're just different frequencies. So when someone informs you they don't care about the Super Bowl, they might not be trying to be contrarian or edgy. They might just be someone whose nervous system prefers lower intensity experiences. The chaos and emotional stakes of a 3-hour game with continuous momentum swings genuinely might feel exhausting rather than exciting. And here's where it gets psychologically complex. Humans are tribal by nature, right? We survived as a species because we formed organizations and competed with other groups. Sports tap into that primal group identity issue. I know that sounds dramatic, but the emotional response to my team won versus their team won follows a lot of the same patterns as primordial in-group versus out-group dynamics. But not everyone experiences that attraction with equal intensity. Some people might get their sense of community from book clubs or niche online forums about mechanical keyboards, or literally anything that doesn't entail watching grown men give each other concussions over an oblong ball. They're not rejecting community itself, they've just found it elsewhere, in spaces that don't require them to memorize quarterback statistics or debate whether that was truly a catch. Now let's speak about something that might explain part of the disconnect: locus of control. There's this concept in psychology where people develop either an internal or external locus of control. Basically, do you tend to focus your energy on things you can influence, or are you comfortable investing emotionally in things outside your control? Think about what happens when you watch a game. You're screaming at a screen, you're manifesting a field goal, you're donning your lucky socks. But none of it changes what happens on the field. Some people are completely fine with that. The emotional voyage is the point. Others might find that fundamentally unsatisfying. They'd rather expend emotional energy on things where their effort creates a direct outcome. Neither approach is incorrect, they're just distinct psychological tendencies. Oh, and let's not overlook the elephant in the room: overstimulation. Seriously, nobody ever speaks about how modern life already feels like you're being pummeled with notifications, deadlines, random texts about some TikTok you haven't seen, political dumpster fires, and money stress. For a lot of folks, the Super Bowl is just another thing attempting to hijack your attention and emotional energy. Like, can we get a break? Especially for people who are wired a little differently, the one psychologists call highly sensitive, which is evidently what like 1 in 5 of us. For them, Super Bowl parties are essentially a 3-hour-long sensory assault that leaves them wiped out for days. The lights, the commotion, the endless chatter. What's a festivity for some is a full-on endurance test for others. And here's another thing. Nobody really talks about how much individuals vary when it comes to handling uncertainty. There's research demonstrating that people vary dramatically in how comfortable they are with unpredictability and ambiguity. Sports are fundamentally indeterminate. You never know what's going to happen, and that's supposed to be part of the thrill. But for individuals with lower uncertainty tolerance, that same unpredictability might feel more like stress than excitement. They're not enjoying the suspense, they're just uncomfortable the entire time. And when you combine that with the fact that the outcome literally doesn't matter to your actual life, suffering through 3 hours of manufactured tension for zero payoff starts to feel less like entertainment and more like voluntary anxiety. It's the same reason some people adore horror movies and others can't stand them. Different nervous systems have different relationships with tension and uncertainty, even when it's just for fun. And then there's this huge deal everyone makes about tradition and ritual. The Super Bowl isn't just a football contest anymore, it's this massive cultural production with the commercials, halftime performance, all the themed snacks, the whole circus. If football doesn't really do it for you, all that extra hoopla just makes things worse. It's like being surrounded by people professing to be extremely into something you just don't get, and you're supposed to join in and talk about the ads and pretend you care. Feels kind of fake, honestly. You end up watching everyone else get worked up over something you find completely random, and that strange disconnect can leave you feeling like the only person in the room who missed the memo. It's not just boring, it's kind of lonely in a way that's impossible to explain. But let's be real about something else. Sometimes there's no profound psychological explanation. Sometimes people just don't like football the same way some people don't like cilantro or techno music or true crime podcasts. We've become so obsessed with pathologizing every difference that we forget humans just have different preferences. Shocking, I know. The person who doesn't care about the Super Bowl might be profoundly passionate about Formula One or Olympic curling or literally anything else, and that preference doesn't need a neurological justification. The expectation that everyone should care is honestly weirder than not caring. What I find most interesting is how uncomfortable it makes people when someone says they don't care about the Super Bowl. There's this immediate defensiveness, like you've insulted someone's mother, and that reaction tells you everything about how sports function as identity indicators in our culture. When you deny the Super Bowl, some people hear it as rejecting them, their values, their entire social world. It's not actually about the game. It's about belonging, shared experience, and maybe some concern that if too many people opt out, the whole thing loses its cultural weight. So, if you're someone who doesn't care about the Super Bowl, there's undoubtedly a mix of factors at play. Maybe your optimal stimulation level runs lower. Maybe you prefer investing energy in things you can directly influence. Maybe you're just not wired to get excited about competitive athletics. Maybe you find the manufactured spectacle exhausting. Maybe uncertainty feels more like tension than fun. Or maybe you just sincerely find it boring, and that's the entire explanation. All of those are completely valid ways to exist. And if you're someone who lives for the Super Bowl, that's equally valid. We don't all have to experience the world the same way. And honestly, that's probably the only reason society functions at all. You can have 115 million people losing their minds over a football game, while another massive group is perfectly content doing literally anything else. And somehow we all coexist. That's it. That's the whole point. If this struck home for you, don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to support these deep dives, click that join button to become a channel member. I would earnestly appreciate